Catholic Church is reeling from the latest sexual abuse scandal. A Pennsylvania grand jury report says more than 1,000 children may have been abused over the past 70 years. Now, Pope Francis has written to the world's 1.2 billion Catholics apologizing for the Church's cover-ups. To put this into perspective, I'm joined by Ian Sayers, Simon Marks in Washington. Simon, tell us more about these allegations and what the Pope has been doing about it.
Well, this is a very major development, this papal intervention on this particular issue, Jane, and it follows the publication of a report by a grand jury in Pennsylvania in the middle of last week that was absolutely breathtaking in its scope. It cited at least 300 cases of sexual abuse, many of those cases involving very grave incidents of sexual assault and battery by more than 1,000 incidents by more than 300 priests over a 7-decade period. And it said that the Church had essentially brushed aside a series of complaints by the victims, by families of the victims during that 70-year period. And the grand jury in Pennsylvania concluding that, yes, indeed, the Catholic Church had some kind of case to answer for. That led to this intervention over the last few hours by Pope Francis. Unprecedented, the first time a Pope has directly written to Roman Catholics and addressed concerns about sexual abuse in the United States. "We showed no care for the little ones," he wrote. "We abandoned them." He spoke about atrocities of priestly sexual abuse and cover-up. He said that efforts to beg pardon would never be sufficient. The deep wounds of the victims will never go away. And that really is an indication of the extent to which the Catholic Church in the United States and more broadly the Catholic Church globally has been absolutely poleaxed by the decision of this grand jury in Pennsylvania.
And Simon, I hear that other states are now considering legal action.
Well, there is the possibility of that. Certainly, the Attorney General of New York is said to be speaking to other attorney generals in other states with a view to launching similar investigations into the behavior of the Catholic Church all over the United States. I mean, we all know about the previously reported incidents in Boston that were unearthed by the Boston Globe. If you've seen the film Spotlight, you will know all about those. Now comes these revelations from Pennsylvania, but there's no reason to imagine that this kind of abuse wasn't taking place in other parts of the country as well. So every possibility that there will be further investigations, further grand juries impaneled. But there are big questions, Jane, about the extent to which any of the priests responsible for this alleged abuse will ever actually face trial, because so many of these incidents happened so long ago, they are too old to be brought before the courts under the rules, particularly in Pennsylvania, of how long it can be before you can no longer bring a criminal case. So whether we a whole slew of criminal prosecutions, that remains very much to be seen.
And what about those who say they won't resign? I'm, here talking about the Cardinal in Washington, saying he won't resign despite his role in the scandal.
Yeah, I mean, we've got that right here in Washington, D.C. I'm literally sitting actually right opposite St. Matthew's Cathedral here in Washington, D.C., where Cardinal Wuhl is saying that he has no plans to resign, even though he is named in this grand jury report. They specifically say that he didn't do enough to respond to complaints of abuse that were brought to him. Down in Texas, a priest just outside Dallas has disappeared after he was named by the grand jury in connection with at least 2 alleged cases of abuse against teenagers. So a manhunt is underway to try and locate him. And I think across the country there really has been gasps of surprise in many parishes as people have looked at this report and seen names appearing on the list that they simply never expected to see. That's why this has really, I think, shocked shocked so many within the Roman Catholic community here.
All right, Simon, thank you for that. Tears and joy as Korean families meet. We look at what's behind the emotional reunions. That story still ahead.